I want to thank Caden for allowing us the privilege to learn, to stretch, and to gain knowledge by sharing his story. Please help me welcome Caden Carson McClay.
How are you guys? I'm going to tell you right now, I can't see any of your faces. It's too bright up here. I'm also short and a small person, and I have a baby face, so that's a thing. Before I get started, I want to ask you guys a favor. I want you to take a look at this list of words. All right, as you look at this list of words, I want you to think of the most important people in your life. I don't care who they are. It can be your best friend, your parents, your siblings. It doesn't matter to me. I want you to think of the most important people in your life. If there's one word on this list that you can use to describe one of those people, I just want you to raise your hand. Okay, you can put them down. The point of me saying that is that regardless of whether you're a part of the LGBTQ community, you know someone who's a part of the LGBTQ community, or you've never met anybody who's a part of the LGBTQ community at all, you now have a bond with one member of that community. This is a list of adjectives that I asked my dad to put together for me about 4.5, 5 months ago for another presentation I did. And the point is, there's something in common between me and you. Regardless of what it is, there's one thing that you and I have in common. Okay? I want to go through a couple of disclaimers. I'm one person. Okay? I can only speak to what I've been through. I can only speak to my life. I can only speak to my experiences. I don't plan or act or expect to know everything. And I'm here as a learning experience for myself and for you. Okay? That's all I can expect to do. I'm not here to make you an ally. You don't get a rainbow cape when you walk out the door. You don't have to walk around fighting homophobic comments. That's not what I'm here for. Okay? I'm here to try and expose you to the life of one person who identifies within the LGBTQ community, and if you choose to do something about that, that's your business. Okay, I'm not here to force you into something that you're not, something that you don't want to do. Third part, I'm not here to change you. Okay? I'm not here to change your personal, religious, or political beliefs. I'm not here to force you into something that you don't want to be forced into. What you decide to do with what I say here today is purely up to you, and that's entirely your choice. Does that make sense? I don't want anyone to feel like I'm trying to force you into something here. So there's a quote that I saw. It was on Tumblr. Make fun of me for being as queer as possible later. But the quote basically says, "I'm the boy who was born as a girl and has to prove every day to himself that he's man enough to brave the world." Okay, and this quote I heard when I was about 16 years old, and it spoke to me because as a 16-year-old who hadn't come out at the time, I was dealing with a lot. Okay, so there are days when I don't leave my room. I can't. I'm just like, listen, we're not going to class today. It's not happening. I can't get myself up. And there are days when I have to convince myself that I'm okay, that I can do it. And when I do, great. If I can't, that's fine too, but it's a challenge. So I want to introduce you to the one person who dealt with this the most, the one person who really was spoken to by this quote. This is Kirsten. This is my 3rd grade picture. I found it in my closet. I was hoping it would stay there forever. It didn't, obviously. But Kirsten graduated from Williamsville East in 2015. I don't know if any of you guys are from Williamsville. We've lived in Williamsville since I was about 5 years old. We've been from the area for a long time. And so Kirsten graduated from Williamsville East and decided to go to Kent State University. And the original plan was to go in as undecided, exploratory, with a concentration in human services. She was either going to go into psych or sociology, didn't have a clue. Today, Caden is still at Kent State University. He's no longer exploratory. He's definitely not even remotely interested in psychology and sociology. And he's now a business management major, which is the 5th major change, and we'll see how long that sticks. But the idea, I'm a sophomore. I graduated in 2015, so I'm not that much older than you guys. I'm 20 years old, and it feels old. I won't lie to you about that. It definitely feels old. It's weird being back in high school, but it's not that far off. Okay. A little bit of background about me. I came out 4 times. Okay, I came out at 14. The first time as bisexual at the time, and then about 5 months later, I came out as a lesbian, and it was great. Something felt right about that, but something was still not 100% on. I still hadn't hit the nail on the head, right? So at the end of my senior year of high school, I started doing research. I pulled up Google, as we all do, and had a blast with that. And did my research, looked into things, tried to figure out what I was feeling, what was going on. And I came to the conclusion that I identified on the non-binary spectrum as agender, which basically means that I don't identify with any gender whatsoever. So I told my sister before I left for school, I told a couple of close friends, and I told my roommate, because my roommate was the RA, and so she actually changed my door deck about 5 minutes after my parents pulled out of the school parking lot after they had dropped me off at school. I didn't tell my parents. They had no clue what was going on. And it was good being in school. From day one, I was Caden Carson at Kent State University. Nobody questioned it. No one had an issue with it. That's what it was. And it felt right. And finally, I was like, I need to tell my parents this. This feels weird not telling them. So I called my dad up on the 5th night. It was a very quick turnaround. I was like, listen, there's something you and I have to talk about. And I started crying because I was scared. I was scared that he wasn't going to love me. I'd already put him through 2 coming outs. I'd already put him through a lot. And I was like, I'm trans, and I go by Caden. Everybody here at school is calling me Caden. And I've only seen my dad cry a handful of times. 5 or 6 times in my entire life. Again, I'm 20 years old, and that's 5 or 6 times he and he didn't say anything. And I started panicking, because when my dad doesn't say something, then he's either about to yell at you or he's got some really insightful crap to say. Turns out it was the insightful crap, and all of a sudden I hear him choke up. I was like, oh, good, now he's crying, now he's mad at me, now he's disappointed, whatever the case may be. And he says, listen, as long as you're happy, well-adjusted, and successful, I couldn't care less what people call you. I couldn't care less who you are and what people refer to you as. They can call you buttface if they want. So be it. You're still my kid, and I still love you regardless. And that really was what gave me the courage to come out everywhere. At home, at school, in my friend groups, with my siblings, with my cousins, the whole 9 yards. And so I called my mom the next morning. I said, listen, you and I need to talk. And I was a jerk about it. I won't lie. I was definitely a jerk. Mom, I'm sorry. I know you're here. But I basically called her up and was like, listen, this is what's going on. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. This is what it is. There's no changing it. This is happening. And it took her a long time to understand that. It took her a long time to figure out what was going on. It took her a long time to accept it. And it was really hard for me, because I wanted her to flip on a dime. This had been there my entire life. And for her, it was brand new. It was nothing that she'd ever even thought about before. And so she deserves a lot of credit. She's leaps and bounds not only from where she was at the time when I came out, but from where we ever expected her to be at this point. And she's a huge reason as well as to why I'm able to stand up here and share my story. I'm the oldest of 4. Again, we're from Williamsville. The oldest of my 3 siblings graduated from Williamsville last year. She's at Pitt right now, and she's the one that I told before I left for school. Like any sibling, she joked around a lot. She would crack jokes, and I actually recently received an award just before I told her. And the award was, I don't know if you guys know about the Tom Borelli Awards. I played women's lacrosse in high school, and I received an award my senior year. It's called the Ox Award, and the actual description says the Ox Award is awarded to the 1 men's and 1 women's player, blah, 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 blah. And when I told her this, and I read her the description, and I had just come out to her in the previous car ride before, and she goes, well, you're not either, you can't get it. I was like, oh, okay, thanks, Lindsay. So she was joking like any sibling, and that was part of her learning, and that was part of her understanding. I have 2 younger siblings. They're twins, a boy and a girl. And my brother was ecstatic. He had been in a house of girls for his entire life, and he finally had somebody that he could relate to. Even if that person had been there the entire time, he finally got to see it. And then his twin, my other sister, she was the biggest shock, to be 100% honest. When I came out the first time as bisexual and as a lesbian, she was 8 years old, and we butt heads constantly. We still butt heads constantly, but she doesn't turn to this anymore. Every time we got into a fight for about a year after I came out the first time, her response to every comeback I would ever have was, well, at least I'm not gay. So coming out as trans, I was like, good, she's gonna pull some of this crap again. It was actually the exact opposite. I came home for the first extended period of time at Thanksgiving in 2015, 3 months after I come out, and we have a big kitchen. This kid would be on the far side of the kitchen, and she would scream across the kitchen to someone in the dining room, it's Caden, and he goes by he, him, his pronouns. Without zero hesitation, she would sprint across the house, she would bark at him, and this is what it is. You don't get to call him Kirsten anymore, that's not who he is. And that was a really big shock for me, because I was like, who are you? What did you do with my sister? Where did Courtney go? And so my family's been a really, really big part of why I can stand here and I can talk. Yeah, I talked about, I've come out 4 times. We'll see if it comes around again. My cousins keep joking that I get gayer and gayer every time they see me. And so there's sort of this idea that we can't change our labels. Right? So I came out 4 times, and the problem isn't that I came out 4 times. It's not that I changed that label 4 times. It's that society's decided that labels are forever. Honestly, whose idea was that? It's not true. It's simply not a real thing. Okay, whether that label changes because you found one that better suits you or because you changed and a different label is better now, labels are not forever. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm reading off note cards right now so that I remember what I'm supposed to be saying. And I want to do a projective technique, I almost forgot about it. So I want you to think of your own sexual orientation. I don't need responses, I don't need hands, but I want you to think about it internally. Okay, in order to narrow it down a little bit, I'm gonna direct this mostly at individuals who identify as straight women. Okay, so out of curiosity, where do I fit in that spectrum? Because I identify as a man, but I still have the anatomy of a woman, of a biological female. So where do I fit? Because I can guarantee you there's at least one person in this room who says, I'm a straight woman, but I'll date him. Who cares? What difference does it make? And I can guarantee you that there's at least one woman in this room who says, no way. Keep all of that away from me. And that's totally fine. The idea is that these two individuals use the same label to identify and to label themselves, but that label means something completely different for them. There's this kid that I knew in high school. He was a year above me. And in my freshman year, he came out as trans. And as a 14-year-old questioning my entire existence, I asked him, how did you know? Was there a moment? Was there a story? Was there an event? Did something happen? How did you know? And he said to me, I never formed the emotional attachment that women form in relationships. I was like, well, I form all the emotions, so there's no way I can be a guy. I'm still emotional. That hasn't disappeared. But, and at that time, I was trying to fit myself into his box of what a man should look like. And so the first big thing that I want you to take away from today is you don't have to fit into somebody else's box. It's illogical. It's not productive. You're never going to actually get anything done if you're trying to be somebody else. Okay, it's never going to work right. The problem is we're trying to do that constantly, and that's where we have people not feeling accepted, people not feeling like they're at home, and it just never works out. The other issue is that once we've determined what label we want to use for ourselves, what identity we want to use for ourselves, we think that a switch is going to flip. Right? I'm definitely guilty of this. When I came to terms with my gender identity, I was like, all right, once I come out, everything's going to be fine. I dealt with depression and anxiety in high school. I still deal with depression and anxiety. I still have those bad days. And I basically was like, it's going to go away. As soon as I come out, I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. I came out, it still wasn't fine. And then I was like, all right, when I started hormones, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be better. I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to be anxious anymore. I started hormones, and I still have those bad days. And for a period of time, I was under the impression that once I got top surgery, it was going to be better. And then once I got bottom surgery, it was going to be better, and so on and so forth. And I was never going to reach a point where I was okay. I was never going to get there, because that's not the point. You're never going to end that way. It doesn't flip a switch. So I'm going to put up a lot of numbers here for a second, and I just want you to take a minute to digest them. All right? And then I'm going to talk about them. They come from, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Listen, but it's an organization that does a lot of surveying with high school and middle school students. And half of the statistics come from their 2015 climate survey, and the other half of the statistics come from a website called transequality.org. I'm just going to let you look at them for a second, and then I'm going to talk about them. I bring up these numbers in a lot of different places. Right? So I spoke to UB Med School, I've talked to ECMC, I've talked to a nursing program. Sorry, I'm dead inside, it's fine. I've talked to a nursing program at school, and a lot of these numbers come up a lot of the time. All right, so I'm gonna run through them real quick just so you know exactly what you're looking at. Up in that top left, 58% of LGBTQ individuals have felt unsafe because of their sexual orientation. 43% have felt unsafe because of their gender identity. 66% of LGBTQ individuals have avoided extracurricular activities, 72 avoid school functions, 40% avoid bathrooms, and 38 avoid locker rooms, solely because of their identity and because they don't feel okay. They don't feel safe. This next set of statistics that I'm going to run through are from transequality.org. In the top right, 51% of trans youth experience depression, compared to cisgender youth who experience depression 21% of the time. 27% of trans youth experience anxiety, compared to 10% of cis youth. 17% of trans youth engage in self-harming behaviors. On the flip side of that, 4% of cis youth engage in self-harming behaviors. And that number in the bottom left-hand corner, the idea behind this slide was sort of to scale the numbers so that they look proportional to each other based on their percentages. A number in the bottom left, you can probably only read it if you're sitting in the front row, it's 1.6%. 1.6% is the national average for individuals who have attempted suicide. For the trans population, that's 41% of suicide attempts. And I know that this is down, and I know that you probably don't want to start at 8 a.m. like this. But the reason that I bring this up as Ramon mentioned, safe spaces, right? And we have a lot of misconceptions about safe spaces and why they exist. And basically, I'll dive right into it. Safe space is an environment where a person or a group of people can feel like they're safe from emotional and physical harm. Right? This is the definition right off the internet. Notice that that doesn't say a marginalized person or category of marginalized people. You don't have to be a minority to be protected in a safe space, at least not in theory. Okay, that's the idea behind it. Just to be clear, a safe space is not an attack. It's not an attack on your freedom of speech. It's not an attack on your beliefs. It's not an attack on your existence or anyone's existence as an individual who's not part of the minority. That's not what the safe space is. Simply, the idea behind a safe space is to try and elevate the voices of marginalized groups, of LGBTQ people, of racial minorities, of gender minorities, the whole nine yards, everything. The idea is to try and raise everybody to the same level. The idea is not to take away your ability to speak and your ability to say what you want to say. That's not the point. The idea is to create a space where every single individual who walks in that room, who walks in that space, feels like they can talk, regardless of how they identify. I can't make safe spaces exist alone. I can't do it alone. I can't stand in front of every school in every state, in every nation, across the entire world. I can't do it. And even if I could, I can't ensure that every single person in the audience is going to take away what I want them to take away. I can't. I can't. It's not possible. Okay? So I need your help. Okay, we all need your help. 5 years ago, I was sitting where you were. I was 15 years old. It was a different auditorium. It was a different school. It was a different speaker. But I was sitting where you were, and I wanted to change the world, as I'm sure probably a lot of you do. And some dream, whatever it could be, to make an impact on the world. Okay, and here I am, 5 years later, changing you guys. Not forcefully changing you, but leaving some sort of an impact, leaving my mark. All right, and I've done it with different organizations, and I can't change everything. So there are things that you can do. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to wake up one morning and suddenly show up to a school that you didn't even graduate from and tell your story. That's not what happens. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes building connections and building networks, and it takes a lot to get to a point where you're making a significant impact. But I want to leave you with a couple of challenges and with a quote. The idea is that when it doesn't happen overnight, it happens small. It happens in your classrooms. It happens at your dinner table. It happens at family gatherings, on your sports teams at the lunch table. It happens everywhere. Okay, you don't have to stand up in order to make an impact. So I'm going to leave you with this quote. We all die. The goal is not to live forever. The goal is to create something that does. There's a quote from the book The Fight Club. I don't know if you guys have ever read it, but I'd never actually read the book. I stumbled across it again on Tumblr. Judge me as you will. But this quote was always, I heard it when I was 14, and I knew very early on in my life that I wanted to do something, that I wanted to leave a mark. So with that, I'm going to leave you with 4 challenges, and I'm done, and you can leave, I promise. The first is, don't worry about changing the world. You're not going to change the world overnight, but worry about changing your world. Because if one of you changes your world, and another one changes your world, and another one changes your world, then all of those people in your world that you've impacted go out and make a bigger change. And make a bigger change. And your spread gets further and further and further until the entire world has changed into something that you don't even recognize because you weren't a part of it. That's not what you were born into. The second one is personal attacks. And part of why I believe safe spaces fail a lot of times is because we come in and someone says something, we immediately feel victimized. Because we feel like something they said was personally attacked. It was personally directed at us, and that's not the case. And if you lose that mindset of walking into a space and feeling like someone's out to get you, that space immediately becomes more productive. It immediately becomes safer for everybody involved. The third one is pronouns. I say it all the time, and everyone looks at me and they go, how do we implement pronouns? How do we talk about it? How do we get there? Think about it the next time you meet someone new. Hi, I'm Caden, and I go by he, him, his pronouns. It's really not that difficult. It's another 4 words. And implementing that then gets someone that you just talked to think about it more. And maybe they implement it with the next person that they talk to. And that spread grows and grows and grows, and slowly that changes the world until it's more accepted and it's more normalized. Right? And the last thing that I want to leave you with is make mistakes. Making mistakes is how we grow, and growing is how we learn, and learning is how we change the world. Thank you.